Final tutorial in InDesign. I just want to take this opportunity to show you a few other of the tools and features within the software program which you may find useful. Remember, don't give up in InDesign. It can be quite frustrating if things don't work first time, but there's always a way around it. So remember the very basics. Remember to check your layers. Remember to use these tools up here to direct select and select different elements on the page before you start panicking about how to use the software. Other features you might want to use are colour. Down the side you'll notice that you have the colour options, and again you can just use the selector, the colour picker there, to select any kind of colour you wish. That colour will be reflected, let's pick a pinky colour, down on this colour swatch here as well. So if you want to change any kind of text colour or any kind of shape colour, then this is where you would find that particular option. Other features that you might be interested in are the shape tools. So if I go here, you can actually create rectangle, ellipse or polygon. I think a rectangle is probably most appropriate, and what you might want to use a rectangle for is, again, like on your front cover, is to highlight any kind of headlines or sub-headlines within your work. And again, remember the layers, because once you add in a rectangle, let's do one now, remember that will then, so we've got rectangle, it's above my image. So if I go and move that, so remember we'll have to use the edge, there we are. It will go over my face, obviously, but if I drag that layer above, we can have that kind of effect. So it depends on what you want. And remember to click auto fit just to make sure that if you do resize that rectangle, that we maintain the ratio appropriately. So that might be something that you find quite useful to use to highlight certain parts on your page. Again, you can change the opacity of that particular shape. So if you go to this option up here, we can actually knock that down. So again, you're adding a bit of interest to your page, perhaps. I don't know, it depends on what effect you want. You can also change the direction of that image. If you hover your cursor below, we might have to use this tool here. It's going to let us, nope. There are some tools up here anyway where you can kind of rotate images and realign them as well, which you may find quite useful. So you can see there we're just slightly knocking that image up a little bit. So again, it might be a little feature that you want to use just to add a bit of depth to your page. You could equally do that same thing that I've just done there, but with an image that you've actually copied off the internet. If you've got a particular texture or a feel that you want to apply, then please do that in the software. As well as that, so we've gone through text, you may wish to use the line tool. Some people like to draw a very faint line between, if I just draw this down here, between each column. And again, that's quite a common feature of page design. And again, if you want to do that, then that's absolutely fine. You can change the colour. We can change the colour up here. If I select it, that would help, wouldn't it? So if I select that, we'll change the colour. You could have different thicknesses. So there's lots of different options at the top to manipulate that shape once you're happy with that and you've finished with that particular line. I need to move that up a layer. There we go. Okay, so that could be, so we've done lines there. I've shown you how to use a box, a rectangle. You could use a circle. If there's a particular shape that you want to use, again, use Photoshop. Edit the object in Photoshop and then drag it into the software. What I would encourage you to do is to make sure you've put in page numbers, any kind of features on the top corners as well. If it's kind of news, if it's a new album, new tour, live, whatever it may be, that's a nice little design feature to include. You can use this tool here, which is the gap tool, which if you look here, you can actually knock over the text in a very distinct fashion in line with the ruler at the top. And this is what makes InDesign very different from Photoshop, is you can be very, very precise about what you're doing and what you're moving in the software. Now, as you can see, we've got lots of lines going on here, which may not be applicable for you. And if you want to see how your page is going to look eventually, if we just minimize this a second, if you go to View, and if you go to Screen Mode and go to Preview, that will give us an image of how our page is going to look once we're finished, and that's quite nice. But equally, it's nice to have those lines, those guidelines to see where we're positioning our images and our text and so on. To go back to that, just go to View, Screen Mode and Normal. Okay. If I go to View, Display Performance, you may also want to select High Quality Display. That might be if your image looks slightly grainy, more, it might look as if it lacks quality. But if you click on high quality display, you can view it as it will be viewed once you put your finished product on your blog. So hopefully that's given you some ideas about how to use InDesign. Remember, you've also got my Pinterest page. So if I go onto here, you can see there's 2 Pinterest pages which may be of interest. You've got your Photoshop tutorials. On here, there may be some sort of effect that you want to include, and you will need to do that in Photoshop before dragging it into InDesign. So for example, I really like these kind of text features here. I think they're really, really effective. This one as well. And again, very, very simple. I can even do it, so you can do it too. And maybe look at that tutorial, and that might add a bit of interest into your double page feature. What you can also do, if I go back, and we'll go back to my Pinterest boards, I've got an InDesign tutorial board, and on here, I've put things like how to create text wrap, how to create a drop cap, which is where you get the larger letter for the first letter of that article that you've written. You may also want to have a look at the beginner's guide to InDesign. If my tutorials aren't good enough for you, that's fine. And you may also want to look at how you can put text within an image. That might be interesting to do. And also I've included here a little cheat sheet, so any kind of shortcuts that you can use in InDesign, because I know some students prefer the shortcuts, but I tend to do the long-winded versions. So if we go back to my magazine here, you can see that it's starting to take shape, but the key is preparation. If you prepare your images, prepare your text, know your headlines, know what you want to achieve, you can do it in InDesign. It will take practice, it will take a lot of hard work, but you can do that. And make sure you follow a real magazine as closely as possible to get the higher marks.